everyone, literally everyone, has mentioned it before, but Reindeer absolutely looks like an older version of Mateo. Like the hair and the grandpa sweater. And because so many people have picked up on it, I have to believe that it was intentional on Druck's part. But I don't really know why, to be honest. And I haven't seen like a lot of people talking about why. If any of y'all know, that'd be great. The only thing I can think of is that because this is the clip that gives Mateo a bit more hope and gives him a direction to go towards, by kind of dressing him up like Mateo and casting an actor who kind of looks like him, it could give Mateo a bit more hope for his own future, like subconsciously, something like that. Moral of the story is, I really don't know why they do this. That's the best thing I can come up with. It's just to instill a bit more hope into Mateo by looking at someone who looks like an older version of himself, dishing out some pretty good advice. I don't know. You tell me.
Viel wertvoller als
I
Hayes,
love him so much.
sogar als das
Oh,
unglaublich
I love
starke
him.
DMC.
And that brings me to another point that I think I've mentioned before, but Druck Season 3 is simultaneously darker than the OG Season 3, but it's also just as funny, just in a different way. I think the OG is always like more overt with their humor, more about just like over the top things than more subtle humor. I'm not saying one is like better than the other at all, but it's just different. It's a different way of delivering comedy. And I think this is a perfect example of it. This entire situation is hilarious when you look at it from an outsider perspective. But this scene is also really dark too. It starts in a really dark place. Like I said, people were like actually worried that Mateo was going to go to this dealer and get some like hard drugs and maybe even overdose or something. I saw like some really crazy theories. But based on the way that they were setting up his drug problems, I mean, I probably would have believed some of them too if I was watching this live. So there's definitely elements of darkness there. It's very somber. But when you look at it from a situational standpoint, this is funny. His drug dealer, who is so sweet and genuine and wise and like genuinely very kind, he really does care. But he's also a drug dealer. You know, he's also trying to talk Mateo out of buying drugs. He reminds me of Fez. He reminds me of Fez from Euphoria. Just like the best, you know? The best drug dealer ever. And then another thing that I think is so funny about this scene, if you kind of take it out of context of how somber this episode is, there's like whale music in the background. I'm gonna try to find a clip where you can hear it clearly without blowing out your eardrums.
Das schlägt eine Brücke zur nächsten Insel und danach von Insel zu Insel.
But yeah, it sounds like spa music. Which is even more funny when you think about how back in clip 2, Carlos was talking about going to the spa with Kiki and how listening to whale music can help you feel relaxed. This is Mateo's spa. This is it. His drug dealer's house. Is that not hilarious? It is. It really is. So the OG is more overtly funny with just how like over the top the doctor is. And it's framed in a lot of a lighter way anyway. The lighting is so light, it's very clinical, it's very bright. And this is like much darker, it has shadows, and somber is like the best word I can think of. It really is. But both clips they still have that level of comedy. It's just for this one, you kind of have to step back from it a little bit more, which I like. It definitely fits with the theme of this season and the feel of this season, which is a lot darker, but still has levels of light and comedy kind of sewn throughout it. So there they make a point to show us that Mateo is playing with the knickknack. And this isn't the only time they do it too. They pushed in on it earlier in this episode when he was playing with his pen, and they're going to focus on it later, I think in episode 9, when he plays the inside of his jacket. So this is like a thing, and I wanted us to notice it. Druck wants us to notice that this is something that Mateo does. This is a part of his character. And maybe they were just trying to be consistent and say that Mateo is just like a nervous person. of course I'm taking it as evidence for him having some kind of mental illness, probably depression and anxiety, which is also another example of them just like dangling those mental illnesses in front of our faces, but then not really giving us closure. So I don't know if that was a good idea on their part. I just think it's interesting and kind of strange that they would make a point to focus on stuff like this, focus on potential evidence for a mental illness when they knew they weren't really going to do anything with it anyway. I don't know, it feels this is going to be a really strange reference, but it feels like, this is going to be so weird. This is either going to land or it's not going to land, okay? But I was reading about how Kenny Ortega, who is the director of High School Musical, he put some like queer coding into High School Musical, and it was pretty obvious with Ryan. He was definitely gay, but he couldn't be openly gay because it was Disney Channel in the early 2000s, right? But he still coded it in so that queer people who watched it could still connect to it, even though it wasn't overt. And I feel like it's kind of a similar thing here. I feel like they put so much evidence into Mateo having a mental illness, and not just depression, not just anxiety, ADHD. I've seen a lot of people saying that they identify with him because he shows evidence of being on the autism spectrum as well, which I totally believe. Oh my God, I have so many links for that. It's brilliant. Please read it. Even though it wasn't overt, they still coded it in anyway, with all of these little moments that all add up to some really big stuff, and there's so much evidence. And once again, I'm not sure if them coding it in like that was a good idea or a bad idea, because they should have addressed it. This is scum. I mean, mental illness is kind of a big deal, especially in an Isaac season. You can really hear the music here, and it sounds like it's a motivational speech, which once again plays into the subtle comedy in this clip. The way that Mateo is looking right now, he's just like, what the fuck is this dude going on about? What is happening? I didn't ask for this right now. I did not come here for this. It's so funny. And I loved his pronunciation of everything. I love the way that Reindeer speaks there. It really does sound like a motivational speech. It sounds like it's a soliloquy. It's very theatrical. So the first thing he does once he is inspired by Reindeer's speech is to contact Jonas, of course, his best friend. Jonas is the first person that he wants to see and that he wants to reconcile with. Also, this song, it's called Mountains by Sia, Diplo, Labrinth, and LSD. And the lyrics that play here are, "Darling, I see you. I hope you see me too. I want to know you." And I think that's a great setup for Mateo opening himself up to Jonas. This is the beginning of him starting to build bridges. And Jonas, like I said, is the first person that he wants to build that bridge with. And I think the song definitely contributes to that feeling of hope. Just the way that it's produced, Labrinth's voice, Sia's voice, they definitely have that feel. So beautiful. Oh my God, I love Labrinth's voice in particular. And then the music shifts there, and it goes into a different part of the song where the lyrics are, "What we gotta lose, what we gotta move, I move mountains. I'd do anything for you, anything to move mountains." And I think this is more evidence of Mateo wanting to fight for this relationship and wanting to be active in it. He has a little bit more hope now, and he's still willing to fight, and he's still willing to be active. And I think those lyrics suggest that.